Voting and Participation, Chapter 11. We've always had battles over ballot access. Participation in voting is essential to the functioning of democracy, and voting is the most important or common means by which people get involved. The Constitution gives states authority over the times, places, and manner of holding elections. Some rules vary, including some inequities in access. Because voting shapes the outcome of the elections and the conduct of government, there have always been debates over who gets access to the ballot. The Hamiltonian model of participation sees risks in the extension of the franchise to groups that may be uninformed and favors a larger role for the elites. The Jeffersonian model of participation maintains that greater participation produces better outcomes and encourages citizens to get more involved in self-government. Over time, the right to vote has expanded. Today, Americans enjoy almost universal opportunities to vote. But in the past, the vote was denied to groups such as African Americans, women, Native Americans, immigrant groups, and non-land owners. Trends over American elections have changed access to the voting box. Unequal turnout by various demographic groups suggests that government's response is unequal. Most troubling for democracy is the tendency for people with higher incomes to vote at higher rates than the poor. Older people and those with more education also tend to vote at higher rates than younger people and those with less education. Political scientists explain why people vote and choose not to vote by using theoretical models. The economic model examines the cost and benefits of voting. The psychological model examines attitudes, including the idea of civic duty and the influence of partisanship. The institutional model examines the rules and regulations surrounding voting, including political party behavior, campaign strategy, and the context of the election. Generic factors are a new consideration. The weather is often considered a factor as well regarding the amount of people who vote. Turnout in the United States for voting is lower than many democracies, but it can be explained by this institutional model. From the 1790s to the 1870s, voting rights expanded. From the 1870s to the 1920s, barriers to voting, especially for African Americans, increased. After 1920, voting rights expanded again and were increasingly protected by the federal government. The overall trend has been toward constant expansion of the right to vote. Voter registration helps prevent fraud in elections, but also, claimed by some, poses a gate that decreases turnout. Early voting and mail-in ballots, it's argued, help decrease the cost of voting and increase voting percentages. Other important forms of participation to be considered. Americans participate in the political system in other ways, including being involved in political campaigns, participating in protests that call attention to causes, and with the rise of the internet and other new technologies, engaging in political debate, fundraising, political campaigns on the web. Have you ever been involved in a political campaign? If so, in what ways did you participate? Do you think that the political protests serve any purpose in regards to bringing people to the ballot box or keeping people away? Have you found any new trends in participation that are made possible by the internet? Can you think of some ways, maybe some small ways, that you have done things that might make your community better? Do you see any problems with universal mail-in voting? What ways would you propose to increase turnout in the United States for voting? Think of these things, especially during this week,